Welcome to the Backfield Buzz podcast, a part of the Hive Podcast Network. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and that's not Andrew Foster. That's Nick Frias. Nick, welcome to the podcast. Frosty's away for this episode and next. So
I,
the
I think no, he'll be back for next episode.
well,
As of now, it's a we'll
we
see how it turns out.
we'll see what happens. Well, Nick will be somebody's gonna be here with us,
Yeah,
Glover, whether it's Nick or Frosty. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, still recovering from Sunday, but it's been 2 days past. We're in recovery mode and things will be okay. But I'm happy to be here and happy to be the sub for Mr. Foster.
Yeah, great time to have you on the podcast after the Texans and Bills play.
Okay,
Like,
okay.
absolutely. I'll try to keep the chirps down, but
hmm
no, you won't.
well, hey, maybe a best game. Maybe we'll get into it. But yes, superlatives today. Um, we were going through a whole bunch of stuff for week 5. Best game, best team, worst team, and some other things as well. Let's just jump right into it. Best game of the week. Glover, let's actually no, Nick, floor is yours. You're here. Best game of the week. What do you got?
So it's not going to be the Texans and Bills game, I'll tell you that. Instead, it's actually going to be the Thursday night game between the Falcons and Bucks. I mean, Kirk Cousins has his legacy game, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception, breaking a franchise record in passing yards for the Falcons, on top of doing it on Matt Ryan being inducted into the Falcons Ring of Honor. I mean, the offensive explosion from both teams was great. It was back and forth. I thought the Bucks had it when Levante David picked off Cousins in the fourth, and then the Bucks fumble. Like they didn't actually fumble, but they go backwards, and then Younghoe Koo comes up in the clutch for a 52-yard field goal, goes to overtime. Then the guy from the practice squad, Cardell Hodge, gets the game-winning touchdown. I mean, it was fantastic from start to finish. It was just a great way to start off the football weekend, honestly. Favorite game by far.
Whenever we do these, like the Thursday game always seems like a millennia ago. Like it always seems, and they're usually not that
They're
good,
usually bad.
but like really good one because and honestly maybe it feels even farther away because this was a really good week of football. I'm
Oh yeah.
not gonna lie. So Glover, lots of options to choose. The Thursday night game, what a way to kick it off. We should have known this week was gonna be great. After
Oh, yeah.
that, where'd you go, Glover?
This is like the first week where there's more than like two or three games that could go for game of the week. I mean, just looking through some of these scores. I mean, you have the Bucks Falcons. That was an amazing game to kick it off. Colts Jags was also just out of nowhere amazing. Bills Texans was great. Cardinals Niners. That was another great game. But I'm going Ravens Bengals. It wasn't good for my heart rate or my blood pressure, but man, that was a crazy game. It was just back and forth. Ravens were up early. Bengals got back into it, took the lead. Ravens got back in it late. A crazy overtime, crazy end of the game. The Bengals were driving on the field. Marlon Humphrey gets that clutch interception, drive back down. Tucker hits a field goal after he'd been kind of crap all year. Hits a 50-yarder to send it to overtime. And in overtime, chaos, like just chaos. I thought it was over when the Ravens fumbled. Then McPherson shanks the kick because the holder drops the ball, and then Derrick Henry just goes ham the other way. Like it was crazy, and I loved seeing the Ravens got into a shootout where you couldn't just run it out like you could against the Bills or against the Cowboys. You had to go back and forth with one of the best passing quarterbacks in the league, and they did, and they won. I love that game.
Yeah, that was a pretty wild game. Kind of figured you were gonna go that way.
Yeah.
So did not I didn't choose that. But yeah, just to hop on the point of just how many it started off great with that with the Thursday night game. Then even like the London game between the Jets
Yeah.
Vikings was pretty solid. I mean, ended with a Rodgers pick. Maybe we can get into the Jets later. I know Glover has lots of thoughts about these Jets he's been sharing. Yes, Ravens, Bengals, of course. Jaguars, Colts, like you said, Colts get 2 late touchdowns to tie it up, and then the Jaguars hit the field goal to win it. The Cardinals 49ers was a 1 point game. Cardinals squeaked that one out 24-23. Cowboys Steelers Sunday night. Somehow the Cowboys come down and score when it seemed like that offense was doing nothing. Maybe not for entertainment purposes,
Yeah,
Cowboys
like
Steelers, but the
Yeah,
ending you could almost say made
it
up for it.
it was a good ending, but the first 3.5 quarters of that football game were gouge my eyes out bad.
bro, it was boring. And then on top of it, you had the weather delay too, which
That was
didn't
just
help. We were watching football till what, 1 a.m.? Wasn't it
yeah.
like
It
1
15
a.m.
hours
Eastern,
of
yeah.
football?
was
Yeah,
it
1
Yeah.
a.m.
was the
Eastern.
longest day Sunday of football in NFL history because we started with the 9:30 a.m. London game and you go all the way down to like a 2 a.m., 1:30 a.m. finish in that Steelers Cowboys game. Crazy.
Dude, that London game, I got upset 'cause I actually set my alarm for 9:30 to wake up just to realize it wasn't on television. So then I had to go on I had to go on Twitch, and then some guy was illegally streaming it there. So I just watch it on Twitch for the rest of the game. But I was
Wow.
not a happy camper when it wasn't on
Yeah.
television.
Lots of good games to choose from. Landed on the Texans game, if you can believe it or not. Texans Bills. What a The ending was just wild. It was clock mismanagement from both teams that ended up with Houston squeaking out the win. Very confused on why Houston did not run the ball on third down with 44 seconds left. Basically could have just sped up the process of what eventually happened, stopping Buffalo on the goal line and then basically just getting the ball right back where they were and then kicking the field goal for the win. I mean, if the punt wasn't that good, like Buffalo could have brought that out to the 25 and then uh like scarier things could have happened from a Houston side of things, but overall it was a good game. Diggs more yards than every receiver combined on Buffalo in that one. Just wanted to say that. But
Thanks.
Fairbairn walks it off. All right. I think that's a good summary of a lot of the best games. There was a
Yeah.
lot.
It
And
it was
also
that Texans Bills game was just so weird. Like it was legit like D'Amico Ryan, here, Sean, you can have the win. We don't want this. You take this one. And then he dug it went, no, 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 no. Please take it back. You guys get this win. You guys have it. They just both kept doing stupid stuff.
yeah, maybe Nick, speak on the Bills' perspective of things. Why is McDermott throwing the ball um on second down and third down? There's the
On
clip
your
of
own.
yeah, there's the clip of Scott Hansen kind of narrating it and being absolutely befuddled. I mean, Nick, did you think that was the right call or things could have gone differently?
I'm actually not with the majority, and I was fine by it. I'm fine with give the ball to the best player and let him do magic. And with Allen, I'm fine with him. Give him 3 plays to get 10 yards. I like it. I know the wide receivers were not having a good game, and that's to put it nicely, but I was okay with it. I do see why people, though, are hating on McDermott and not him running the ball, but the Texans still had 3 timeouts. So let's say we run the ball 3 times and you stop us 3 times. Yeah, you have no timeouts, but the same result just would have happened. We would have punted it to you guys. You guys would have came down, got 5 yards, thrown on the out route or to what I think it was Schultz, and kicked the game-winning field goal.
Well, I mean, we ended up using one of the timeouts
Yeah.
to get to to get right into field goal range. So I
That
don't
that
know.
that was the big issue is like, yes, they could have run the clock out, but if you're in a situation you run the clock out, they now have no timeouts to get a good punt off. They have to get the play off and then get a spike off to get into field goal range, as opposed where they got the play off and they just called a timeout and they were chilling. So
Houston was
it's
I think
tough
it was
that way.
the way the game was going too. Houston is also a top five team at defending the pass, and Cook was just killing Houston all day, predictably. And
Yeah.
so maybe the Bills line could have got a push. I don't know. You're tough when you're backed up like that, anyways. But uh, lots of good games. Lots of good games. Let's move over to the bad games. Worst game of the week, Glover. Where did you go? Couple of options.
I went to the recurring teams of this season, the Dolphins and Patriots. They both have been in this category multiple times. They played each other, and shocker, the game sucked. It was like, you're sitting there. Me and Walls were together, and we were watching. We had the Ravens game up, we had the Texans game up, and we had Red Zone on. I barely saw that game. Like, it was 15-10. I saw the ending, I thought the Patriots won it because Jacoby Brissett hit Jalen Polk in the back of the end zone for a great toe tap, and then it was called back off camera somehow, and it was 15-10. Like, just boring, sloppy football between two bad teams that, I mean, if you're the Dolphins, glad you get another win without Tua, because he should be back relatively soon, which will be helpful for you. But without Tua, this offense is dead in the water, and the Patriots, that week one win against the Bengals, I want to call it a fluke because they've looked terrible ever since, but at the same time, the Bengals might have just sold that one. So the fact that the Patriots have a win against a team like the Bengals is kind of crazy with the way they've played these last 4 weeks.
I mean, yeah, they have the same record as Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They're both 1-4. Yeah, 15-10, or 15-10 is a pretty disgusting scoreline. I went the exact same thing. It was just basically who made less mistakes, and Miami did just enough. Yeah, Polk. So I guess they called, from what I understand, was he because he was back towards where the out of bounds was, the back of the end zone, he had to get the full foot down instead of just the toe tap. When if it's you're facing towards out, you can get the just the toe down.
Yeah,
That's what I
I guess that's because
understood.
if his heel went down, he'd be out of bounds. But at the same time, we looked at like you go back to the Bills Texans game, Keon Coleman's touchdown. He stepped over the line, but his heel never touched the line, so he was still inbounds. I get what I think I get it because it's sort of like if you drag the toes facing towards the out of bounds line, if you were to put your heels back down on the ground, they'd still be in bounds.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of a weird, it's a weird ruling.
I mean, Nick, did you have you ever seen anything like that? That was the first time I have seen
Yeah.
this.
Mm-mm. Nope. I'll be honest, I was confused when they like when the call was made because I'm thinking like, okay, like that's I'm kind of thinking the opposite of what Logan's thinking here, where I thought it was gonna be a touchdown, and then obviously it
Yeah.
wasn't. And I mean, e even if it was a touchdown, I mean, like maybe the game goes from like a 2.5 to a 3 out of 10. Like, ooh,
Yeah, it
Jalen
was.
Polk gets. Will that be his first career touchdown?
No,
Polk?
I think he had one earlier
Or
this
he
year.
has one already. Okay,
But
but
but the other thing is like it's also just like it's weird to see a toe tap facing away from the out of bounds line. That's why we've never seen it before. Is because it's weird that you're backing up and getting so close to the line you have to tap your toes to get the ball in. That's just kind of a little. It's a weird situation, but I think it was a bit of a scramble around play, make something happen at the last second. But yeah,
Well, shout out the refs, I guess, for getting it right there. I
yeah.
guess if that's in the rule book. Nick, worst game of the week. Where'd you go with?
believe it or not, I guess we got three strikes on Miami and New England because yeah, that's mine too. It's just boring. I mean, everything that went wrong, I think, could have gone wrong with the game. I mean, you have a dynamic offense in Miami with Tua at center, though. I mean, you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane. Those three names alone can create so much offense. But then when you have Tyler Huntley, no offense, Logan,
I'm
throwing
taking.
the
I watched him
ball.
play. I watched him play. He sold a playoff game for us. There's no offense here.
But you know what I mean? Like when you have someone of like that caliber of quarterback throwing to the guys, it just zaps all the energy out. And then I mean, you look at the special teams mistake. I think Sanders missed what, three kicks in that game. There was really bad clock management. It was just a ugly game from the start to finish. I'm with you guys. I barely watched it. I watched like some highlights and like some of the film stuff, but man, it was from what I saw, it was terrible.
I think this the Tua injury has shown me two things with the Dolphins. One, I'm lower. I shouldn't be as low as on Tua as I am. He's actually a much like he's obviously a much better quarterback. But two, I think Mike McDaniel's not as good of a coach as he made out to be. I think his inability to adjust for the quarterback he has under center is very apparent. I talked about it a little bit before, but if you can't rejig your system to work for a guy who's been there for 2 weeks and doesn't have an arm like Tua, doesn't have the accuracy like Tua, doesn't have the smarts like Tua, can't read a defense like Tua, and you can't rejig an offense that has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, like you have so many great names in this offense, and you can't figure out a way to scheme them into easy situations for Tyler Huntley. Greg Roman could do that, and Greg Roman's an idiot. I don't like Greg Roman at all. He can't get Justin Herbert to throw for over 200 yards. Like, this is what we're talking about here. Like, it's not rocket science. You're just going to dumb your offense down a bit and switch things up. But he has an inability to do that, and it's really becoming apparent. So if the Dolphins lose Tua, the only guy who can seem to read defenses and run this system properly, they're cooked. And that's not a spot you could be in as a head coach.
Yeah, not a like it's a tough situation when you're going to a third string who's
Yes.
been on the team
But
for
Skylar
2 weeks.
Thompson wasn't working that offense at all. He couldn't
Yeah.
do it either. And
That
he's
is
been
true.
there.
That is true. I think what you're saying is somewhat fair, for sure. I mean, we'll see. I thought Huntley actually looked better, way better in this game than he did last game, and that
Yeah.
isn't saying much because he was 18 of 31, but threw for 200 yards. He was actually pushing the ball more downfield than I was like expecting. So that's for him. Yeah, the three straight for us on that game, shocker. But Raiders Broncos, even though the Broncos like put up 34 points, not really just the most entertaining, I guess, for them. Honestly, Chiefs Saints. I don't know if you guys, that was kind of like a snooze fest to me.
Yeah.
I was expecting some more offense. Like the Saints offense just got bagged up. Boys, they started off 2-0 with this offense flying. Everybody's talking about Kubiak and this and that. Where
Yeah.
has it gone?
I don't know.
Because I think it's time to lower some stocks on the Saints because
Okay.
at the end of the day, it's Derek Carr and Dennis Allen. That's
I wanna circle back to the Patriots because I just got a breaking tweet from Rappaport. Wiles Drake May is starting against the Texans next week.
yeah.
Weird.
So this is I was talking to some of my friends back home who are Patriots fans, and I was like, guys, I'll be honest, I just want to see Drake May. Like, I'm tired of Jacoby Brissett. I'm tired of watching Jacoby Brissett. Respectfully, I'm trying not to be disrespectful, but
Yes.
it's more so I just want to see Drake May. And the way my buddies were putting it was, it's like you buy a new toy and you just can't play with it for a year. So, but I mean, hey, they had to wait like a month and I don't know, I guess a month and a week.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit last week, so I want to hear what you think, Nick, but I still think it's the wrong choice. This Texans team has been really solid. The defense, we saw what this defense did to a battle line when they played Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was just in distress all game, and this Patriots line might be worse. And Caleb Williams was 2 games in at that point. Drake May's never played a game. I really don't like this. I want to see Drake May just sit it out. Just don't put him in a bad spot with a bad offense, a bad O-line, bad weapons against good teams. It's a recipe for disaster.
I'm okay with them starting him this year, just not against the Texans. I
Yes.
mean, that's the issue is you just saw what the Texans did to Josh Allen, who is a top three quarterback in the NFL. Drake May reminds me a lot of Josh Allen. And if we look back at Josh Allen's rookie year, Josh Allen couldn't hit the side of a barn. So I fear that Drake May is getting like this is a trap for Drake May, and he's gonna have a horrendous
Oh
start. And
yeah.
I really like Drake May. I think he has so much potential. He has the tools, he has the arm, he has the legs on him. I'm a huge Drake May guy, but Cody, what is it? The fourth ranked pass defense you said the Texans are?
I think they're up to third now after this week. So we'll see.
It's
I mean, yeah, Josh Allen, I'm surprised he banged his head pretty hard off the ground because we were getting after him all game, and I'm surprised he stayed in. That's like superhuman type
Yeah.
stuff. Like, because he looked pretty messed up after that and somehow was okay. But I mean, Rappaport saying that May has been taking more reps in practice than a normal backup. I'm I'm of the belief where, yes, like you don't want to rush him in, but at the end of the day, we got to see what you got. And thrown to the fire, I always think is, I don't think it really hurts people more than people like hurts players more than they think. I think it's good experience to be in a bad situation and
well,
like maybe not all the time, but I think it's good learning.
it'll be a bad situation no matter what way it's put in for him. He'll always be in a bad situation with his Patriots team this year. This is just a god-awful situation being put in
Yeah.
against the Texans. We saw him against the Jets for a drive. 4 for 8, 22 yards. He had 2 rushes for 16 yards and was sacked twice in a drive. He moved the ball well, but yeah, what's the benefit to me? What's the benefit of putting him in this week against Houston as opposed to waiting one more week and getting Jacksonville instead? That to me is like, okay, you can get to an NFL view of an NFL game. You're playing, the Jags may suck, but it's an NFL football game. You're not playing in college anymore. You're playing the best of the best. But this team doesn't have a great pass defense, doesn't have much going on for them. Let's see you do that. And it's not like the Jags are slouches all over because he'll still face pressure from the likes of Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker, who had 3 sacks last week. But you're not going to be playing against an elite defense that's a playoff caliber team that's looking to make a Super Bowl push. You wait one week for the Jags, and it's a much cleaner situation to get him
But
comfortable before a good defense against the Jets. So it's like,
it's not like they're gonna have so wait, it's not like they're gonna have an all-pro O line next year if he
no,
sits out all year. He's gonna have a bad O line for
agreed.
the
But
first
like
couple of years of him in New England anyways. So let's
I've
just see what he's got.
I've been in the camp of waiting a couple more weeks. Like I think if you want to start him, if you think he's ready, start him against the Jags, get him comfortable in that game against the Jags. Then he gets a tougher defense against the Jets and the Titans the next week, who have had a pretty good defense. So he gets those tough defenses to face and those rough situations he's going to be in. But he's opened up. He starts out with a nice, comfortable matchup.
I'm with you. I think it's okay with starting him this year and starting him early. It's just the matchup. His first
Hmm.
game shouldn't be the Tex. It should have been.
Agreed.
It should be the Jags. The Jags are a 10 times easier matchup than the Texans will be. So I don't know. I think you're throwing him literally to the fire, and this isn't gonna go the
Yeah.
way that. And like Drake May also wasn't the most polished prospect either coming out of the draft, right? Jane Daniels, Caleb Williams were more polished than he was. He is raw. So you're throwing now a raw prospect in against the top three pass defense. I think you're setting him up to fail in
Yeah.
all honesty. And I just don't just wait for the Jags. Just give Jacoby Brissett one more time, let him get sacked another 7 times, and then throw May in.
I mean,
See,
he's been sacked 17 times in 5 weeks.
I
So
actually think part of it might be because he's just like banged up. Like
that
if
that
you
could be.
watch the page, like since week one, this guy's like getting up so
Oh
slow
yeah.
after every hit. It's like I'm feeling bad at this point, and I
That
think part of it is just like he might not be physically able to go.
no, that could play into it for sure because he has been just getting beat up. Like we watched the Jets game specifically when they were on Friday, we were watching, and this guy was just he got sacked 5 times in that game, and everybody gets up. He's like, oh, he looks like a 50-year-old, just sore back. He's hustling to get back to the line. Like, oh my God, he's in pain.
He's broken, man. He's broken. You know what? For Jacoby Brissett, maybe it's a good thing he's going to the sideline. Let May take
Oh
some hits,
yeah.
let his body heal up a bit. But
That's what I'm saying. That has to be part of it
Yeah,
because
it might play a bit of a factor. It's just give that guy a break.
yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, footwork is big for him. That's something I'm going to be looking at because, yeah, with a solid front there in Houston and with great pass defense, it's going to see how his footwork is, see how the timing is. It's not like he has a lot around him, but
Mhm.
we'll see what he does. Interesting. Interesting. All right, let's keep moving on with these superlatives. Best team, Glover.
This may be shocking. I'm not gonna go with the Ravens in a weekday win. I'm going the Commanders. Because, the Ravens had an obvious flaw on the defensive side of things. Just the Commanders just destroyed the Browns. The Browns suck. But man, the Commanders look nice. Like this offense is rolling. And really, the Browns only scored a garbage time touchdown. They lost this game 34-6. And I don't know if it's more telling to the Commanders than or to the Browns because the Browns couldn't get anything going on one of the worst defenses in football. But this offense is electric in Washington. I mean, Jaden Daniels has absolutely flipped the script. Terry McLaurin looks amazing. The run game is absolutely amazing here. Any O-line problems they have disappear because Jaden Daniels is so dynamic and behind the O-line in under center. He's moving so well. He's airing the ball out really, really well, hitting those deep balls to guys like De'Ami Brown and Olamide Zaccheaus. Like he doesn't have anything really beyond Terry McLaurin, and he's finding these players. And really, ever since Cam Taylor-Britt called it a college offense, Cliff Kingsbury turned it up a level, and Jay Daniels has just stuck with it because the way it was looked at is, and someone I think it might have been Kingsbury himself who talked about it. The first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, they spent their time simple, underneath, quick routes, nothing too complicated, nothing too difficult, nothing too deep, nothing too dangerous. And then after those first 2 weeks where their average depth of target, their average depth of reception was so low, the defenses came up on them and played them super tight. They opened up that playbook, started getting Terry McLaurin those deep shots, and it's why they competed with the Bengals offense. It's why they've been able to light up these scoreboards, is because teams now don't know what to cover because they came in and then the Commanders started going deep again. They back up, the run game opens up. It's a really dynamic offense. And if they get their defense figured out, they could be a scary contending team. And who would have thought at the start of the year that Ravens Commanders are going to be a really close matchup next week?
well, that's the thing. Like, who who's more surprising this year, Washington or Minnesota?
Yeah.
Realistically, right? Like I don't think anybody saw this coming from Washington. I mean, like you said, their defense, their front seven's okay, but their secondary isn't great. And then like you said, it's basically just Terry McLaurin as a wide receiver one for Washington. And I mean, I was lower on Jaden Daniels coming into the year, and he's blown all my expectations away. Washington, what, 4-1? Is that where they
Yeah.
three and
Yeah,
4-1? Who
4 game win streak.
better what do you call record than the Bills? Who would have thought that would have happened? But yeah, it's Washington's been, and they're a fun team to watch too. That's the thing too. It's yeah, Washington looks good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been singing their praises on this podcast for a couple of weeks now, so we'll try not to harp on them. But we've all made the case. Like, I mean, I remember my rant on just how well Kingsbury has been doing for them. You could pass on them, that's for sure. Like, I don't
Yes.
think they're gonna like. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they have a good chance of winning the NFC East because their schedule is pretty light, and Cowboys and Eagles are just not that good to me, honestly. So. We'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
they've their schedule's been weak up until this point. Like beat the Giants, Bengals, Cardinals, and Browns, which is like nothing crazy. I expect the Ravens to win next week.
Should.
Um, but we'll see. Honestly, for me, for this best team, it's kind of tough, Nick. I don't know what you were thinking, but no one really like outside of Washington, I guess no one really just looked like great. Like Houston won, but didn't look very convincing. Like Baltimore won, didn't look very convincing. Jaguar, like all these games, nobody really looked convincing. So I'm interested to hear where who you thought was the best team this week.
So there's one team besides Washington that stood out for me, and they actually played last night, which was Kansas City. I
Okay.
mean, in my opinion, they had the best all-around game,
Yeah.
over 400 yards of total offense. Mahomes, despite not throwing a passing touchdown, still had 331 yards. Kareem Hunt is now relevant with 102 yards and a touchdown. Their defense held the Saints to under 230 total yards. I mean, besides that one deep ball to Shaheed, the
Yep.
defense was kind of on lock. I mean, this is to me probably the craziest stat is how Juju Smith-Schuster somehow got 130 yards in 2024. This guy had 260 yards in 11 games for the Patriots. It's his first 130 yard game since 2018. 6 years since this guy has put up numbers like this. The score won't say it, but the Patriots absolutely dominated the Saints on Monday, which is, like we said before, what kind of made it a boring game because it was all Chiefs from start to finish, and especially in the second half. Oh Lord, was it a snooze fest? But
Yeah.
yeah, best team for me, KC. As much as that hurts to say.
That was the best Mahomes has looked since week one. And as just like last year, this defense is elite. It's going to be a large part in why they're going to be one of the best teams in the league all year.
Yeah, I mean they only allowed more than 24 points once all of last season. That's including the postseason. Have only done it once this year. Cincinnati had 25. Nobody talks about this defense like they should be, like especially with Steve Spagnuolo calling the plays. It's the reason they're 5-0 is the defense. It's not because of Patrick Mahomes. It's not
Yeah.
because well, maybe I mean the defense absolutely locked up last night, but I mean Kareem Hunt also joining Juju Smith-Schuster with these big games. They just that's what you can do with a good defense and a good O line. You can make anybody uh look good. So that's uh fair enough. The Chiefs is fair enough. I didn't know where to go. I'm gonna be honest, fellas. I struggle with this. Could say Chiefs. Uh, I thought maybe just the Bears because they just like killed Carolina, but like it's Carolina, so it feels weird calling them the best team. But you know what? Let's go Denver. I've been I've been singing Denver's praise a little bit. I think that defense is really, really good. And uh Bo Nix is getting a bit more comfortable. Threw for over 200 yards last week, which is that's big for him. Two passing touchdowns as well. He seems we were talking about Jane Daniels getting a bit more comfortable. He seems to be getting a bit more comfortable as well. So there we go. Denver, 3-2, beating the Raiders. All right.
Oh.
Worst team And I want to start worst team of the week, and I want to start with who I think my worst team of the week is, the Jets. And based off some news that's come off today, I want to hear your guys's take. Robert Saleh in the can after this 2-3 start for the Jets. And interestingly enough, I was just looking at a tweet. Saleh was thinking about firing OC Nathaniel Hackett before he himself was escorted out of the building this morning after being blindsided. Apparently, wasn't even allowed to talk to the team or anything. So, fellas, what's that's my worst team of the week because I'm counting all this plus a loss in London.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Jets are gonna jet. I mean, what are we doing? This was, I think at this point, it was either a year or 2 years ago. At school, we were doing our radio roundtables, and we were talking about the Jets trading for Aaron Rodgers and all the behind the scenes BS that went on throughout that process before he got injured that first year. And he has a stranglehold on this franchise for some reason after giving them nothing. He's done nothing to deserve this. Absolutely nothing. Like, you traded for him. You went out of your way to give up assets to get him as a 38-year-old. He then forced his way into you picking up all of his best friends at receiver, made sure you followed his every order on this offense, and you then went out and you made all those moves. You picked up guys like Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb. He comes out and he tears his Achilles in the first play. A year later, you're 2-3. Whose fault is that? Aaron Rodgers and the OC he made you hire. Because Nathaniel Hackett's a terrible coordinator. We know this.
Hmm.
He's only there because Aaron Rodgers liked him in Green Bay. He was only in Denver because Denver wanted to get Aaron Rodgers. They didn't. He then got fired because he sucked. Then you go back to New York. Rodgers grabs his best buddy Nathaniel Hackett along. This offense looks terrible, just as bad as it was last year with Zach Wilson. Rodgers looks awful. He threw 3 picks in that game. That's the first one of the very few times he's done that. He looks terrible. And you fire Robert Saleh, who still has a top five defense? Like, he is a good head coach who is a great defensive mind. He's a great defensive mind. And he is not at all the reason this team is 2-3. He's the reason they're in close games because he keeps this defense on its toes all game long. But Aaron Rodgers being a diva and Nathaniel Hackett not being a good OC is why this team is 2-3. I like 5 games into the year after a loss to the 5-0 Vikings. You're gonna fire your head coach? I Aaron Rodgers, I knew it was gonna be a problem for the Jets when they traded for him with all the darkness retreat, and now he's skip mandatory minicamp out in Egypt this year. He's more of a problem than a help at this point in his career. He hasn't won. He's won some MVPs with the Jets. Like, it would think it would have been 3 or 4 years ago now. He had the back-to-back MVPs. He's only won one Super Bowl. It was all the way back in the early 2010s. He hasn't done much to deserve this kind of praise from this organization, and all of his success came with a different organization. He's done nothing for the New York Jets. He has done nothing for this franchise, and yet he gets all this control. He's not Tom Brady. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's 40 years old. He's kind of washed up, and your future's just cooked.
Nick?
I mean, I think you said it. I think Logan just hit it on the nail. I mean, I love when you said he's not Tom Brady because I think that's what everybody expected when they were getting him. It was like Brady going to the Bucks, and
Hmm.
he isn't Tom Brady. He is washed at this point. Aaron Rodgers is washed. It is what it is. You traded assets away, and like I think one thing that'll stick out for Robert Saleh is 20-36 is his record as the Jets, and people look at that and be like, "Oh, he's bad." Who were his quarterbacks? Zach Wilson, Mike
I,
White.
I have it right here. Yeah. So 33 games with Zach Wilson, 7 games with Mike White, 6 games with A-Rod, 5 with Joe Flacco, 3 with Trevor Simeon, and 2 with Tim Boyle. I will say, you can keep going, Nick. If you keep going, Nick.
No, no, no. I'll be quick. I just think it's unfair, and I just hate how they wouldn't even let him talk at the end to the
Yeah.
team. That to me was like scummy. Let the guy have his final word with the team. The guys that he's been around with for what, 4 years, some maybe how long's he been there? 4 or 5 years. He's been there
Yeah.
with some guys for time. let the guy at least get his 20 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and then take him out. It's just, I don't know. Woody Johnson, clown. He's a clown. I don't care.
Well,
It was stupid.
what I find interesting is this is the first time in like 50 years the Jets have made an in-season
Yeah.
coaching change. Um, very, I mean, yeah, it's the Jets. Defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, is being named the Jets interim head coach. So we'll see. I will push back a little bit on like Salah being like I don't think he's not. I think there is still blame on Salah for the
Yes.
Jets' downfall. I think he's just a better DC. I'm gonna be honest. I think he should just be a DC. That's where I'm at, and that's it. He's a Super Bowl winning DC to
Yeah.
me.
I just I think nothing he did was fireable to me. He may have not been an illegal, nothing he's done is a mid-season fireable offense. This is the same organization that let Adam Gase get 17 games. I
Yeah.
wonder who was pulling the strings to get a first in-season fire in 50 years. Could it
If
be the
if you're
40-year-old diva who
if
wants his
you're
way? Yeah,
implying Woody Johnson said Rodgers had no input in the decision.
sure. I buy that 100%.
The fact you have to go out in public though and say like the fact that he already knows that's what the public is thinking should speak to
Yeah.
what the public perception of the Jets and Aaron Rodgers is. It's
Yeah.
oh, Rodgers did it.
It-
Uh,
there were reports of like it's mainly defensive players I think that were blindsided by the Saleh firing because they love this guy. Like this defense plays for Robert Saleh, and it's a good defense with a lot of talented players. I I don't know. I think Hackett's a bigger issue, and now he's sticking
yeah.
around. Good luck.
All right. Well, that's any other worst team contenders. There honestly was a couple, but I think the Jets are a big one. I mean,
Let,
yeah, like
well,
Seahawks disappointed, but
I mean,
anybody else you guys want to touch on?
I'll touch quickly on the Panthers. That's who I put.
Yeah, that too.
Just, I mean, they look like a mess. QB carousel, Andy Dalton, not great. You put Bryce Young back in. Chuba Hubbard looked like the only good thing on offense, and their defense is still a train wreck. So that's who I had coming in here. But
Fair.
Carolina's just a mess all around, and they're going to be a mess for the rest of the season.
That's what I mean. At this point, it's like we can't just keep saying Carolina worst team of the week. At this point, I'm
Yeah.
just that's why I was like Seattle, because like that's a tough loss of the Giants there.
I think it wasn't going to be the Jets after the way they didn't play a great game,
Yeah.
but after everything went down today, the Jets are the worst team of the week for sure.
Yeah, I wanted to get them in there because Logan, you specifically, I knew you had some thoughts on them. All
Hey,
right, let's go to some player specific things. Offensive player of the week, Glover. Maybe you don't have as big of a thought as the this Jets, but maybe you do. I don't know. What
Yeah,
do you
there
got?
was a lot of guys. There's I got four guys here, and you could go up to five or six that were just amazing offensively. Like off the dome, I was like, oh, it's I'm gonna go with Lamar Jackson. He played amazing, but I forgot about the Thursday game. It's Kirk Cousins. Primetime Kirko, man.
Kirk Thuggins,
500
baby.
yards? Like, dude, that was crazy. It was also like the quietest 500-yard performance I've ever seen because I sat there watched that game and I checked the ball script and he's got 509 yards. I thought he stole with the pick, but the four touchdowns, I mean, what a game for Kirk Cousins. And he's still doing it on what seems to be still a bit of a hurt Achilles on his right foot. Like he's still not 100%. And he still diced up that Buccaneers defense. That's pretty good. It's a pretty good defense. And he did a really good job. 42 completions on 58 attempts. The 72% completion with nearly 60 attempts,
Yeah,
509 yards, four
he threw the ball
touchdowns.
58 times. There was
Yeah.
clearly a
Yeah.
game plan that they weren't
Oh,
going
yeah.
to run against Vita Vea and this
Yeah.
Broncos front.
I mean, and he was sacked four times too, and he still was able to get this ball moving, get this offense going. That was impressive stuff from Kirk Cousins. And man, this Falcons team, it's a shame Frosty's not here to talk about his boys. Like this is his team, man. He'd be going crazy talking about Kirk Cousins right now.
Nick, where did you end up going?
I mean, a lot of good guys. I went with Jamar Chase. I mean, 193 yards, two touchdowns. First one runs a deep crosser to get in between the Ravens defense, and then that smooth 70-yarder where Logan, I don't know how he got in between the two Ravens defenders, and then once he got past them, he's off to the races. Wide receiver one this week, huge part of why the Bengals were able to make it to overtime. I know, there was concerns with him because of the whole what he was sitting out. He started off slow, but Jamar Chase is in mid-season form. He's gonna be a top five wide receiver again. He's just a stud. So Kirk Cousins definitely up there with it. I already gave Kirko his flowers, so let's give some flowers to another guy, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, I just couldn't.
Yeah,
I
but
couldn't
I,
talk about
I
how Jamar Chase diced up my defense for 4 quarters and overtime, man. Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah, those were the two guys I was circling as well. I mean, it was pretty clear those guys stood out above the rest. I mean Drake London was a beneficiary of Kirk Cousins' 154 yards, a touchdown on 12 catches. So give some love to him. There was honestly a lot of sneaky, weird offensive performances. Surprise player of the week when we get let's just do surprise player of the week right now since I brought it up because uh I mean you could just go to the Chiefs game and go Kareem Hunt 102 yards and a touchdown. Juju Smith-Schuster 130 yards on 7 catches. Who else could you go? Tracy for the Giants
Rookie, that's a
148.
rookie.
Ah,
mm-hmm.
sorry.
Ah, no, no,
We're
no.
not allowed to do that. Um Alec Pierce, 134 yards on 3 catches and a touchdown.
Including a catch where he bounced it off his left hand down to his right hand while falling and still caught it in bounds.
Dude, biggest boom or bust wide receiver in
Oh
the
yeah.
NFL right now. He for fantasy, he's either giving you 1 point or 20 plus, and
Oh
there's
yeah.
no in between.
Hank Bigsby, 100 yards, 13 carries, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, did you guys have anybody else for surprise player of the week other than the people I've said?
Yeah, I did. I
Oh
did.
wow. Okay, okay,
But
let's hear 'em.
I'm in in honor of Frosty. He did surprisingly bad last week.
Ah, yes.
So I have someone that you guys aren't gonna assume who's my surprisingly bad, but it's Josh Allen. Um,
Oh.
yeah, I'm an angry Bills fan, and going what 9 for 30, 9 for 31 is unacceptable in a Diggs revenge game. 9 for 30, 131 yards, one touchdown. This may have been the worst Josh Allen game I've ever seen. And I've harped on it before on how bad he was as a rookie.
Oh my God.
This was this was terrible, genuinely. And like people can say what they want about the hit to the head at the beginning and he was seeing double. He was terrible before that. He was horrendous before he even got what do you call it? Hit to the head and then had to go out and come back in. I in our group chat, I said this is going to be the game where Josh Allen takes over. He's going to go in for 4 touchdowns. Keon Coleman is going to do his thing. Josh Allen was arguably one of the worst quarterbacks this week. And it's just,
I
I'm
think he
surprised.
was. I think he was the worst quarterback this
Th
week.
there you go. So that's even like, I,
If you
th
take away the Keon Coleman one catch for 50 yards and a touchdown, Josh Allen finishes 8 for 29 for 82 yards and 0 touchdowns.
yeah,
That's if you take away that. And honestly, Keon Coleman barely got in. At multiple times he should have been out of bounds. Like I'm surprised he was out of bounds. I swore he was out of bounds, but
I don't see
anyways,
that. Uh,
continue the rant. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out that it could have been a lot worse.
it was just in a game that meant so much for both franchises. And I'm sure you can say the same thing with Diggs and the whole turmoil, especially for Bills fan. We wanted to come in and we wanted to like stomp on y'all because it was Diggs' revenge game. We want to hold him to 0 catches, 0 yards, and have our new rookie wide receiver that's supposed to replace him go off for 150 and 2 touchdowns. And it didn't happen. Um, Allen has been okay this year, and he was the MVP front runner coming into this year, and he hasn't played anything close to that. Like he had the 2 games where he was good, and then the other ones have been terrible. It's back-to-back games where Josh Allen has not been good, and I think it's concerning because management wanted to look at him as Mahomes, where he can make anybody around him good. He can elevate the talent around him, and right now he's showing he can't do that. Side note, Mac Hollins also needs to be cut off this team. I can't stand Mac Hollins right now. I am Mac Hollins' number one hater. Why is this dude getting more snaps than Curtis Samuel? My guy, Curtis Samuel. Why is Mac Hollins getting more snaps than him? We already have enough deep threats. Mac Hollins' job is what Keon Coleman's supposed to do. We don't need him. We don't need Mac Hollins. But that's a whole nother rant. Yeah, Josh Allen is my surprisingly bad player this week, and I just had to get some stuff off my chest because I'm an upset Bills.
There's a new MVP front runner in town for the
Yeah, yeah.
back-to-back. A new number two quarterback in the
Back to
league that can
Tyrod
elevate the
Taylor.
crappy talent around him. That boy's name is Lamar Jackson.
Tyrod Taylor had comparable stats to
I don't
his
want to
MVP.
hear
Yeah,
that. I
we can
don't
go into
want to
that
hear
debate
that.
again.
No, we've been in this debate. I mean, we got into a heated debate on Sunday about Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson, and we with Mr. Foster, and I wasn't hearing that.
I
But my,
will say, can CJ Stroud not be put in this
he's in the
conversation?
tier.
He
He's in
has
the
the
tier.
second best odds to win MVP right now
He's
over
absolutely in
Lamar
that
Jackson,
tier.
over Josh Allen. So
Absolutely in that tier.
I think it was just because what the no he had two passing touchdowns for the first couple weeks. He didn't have three or something. I think
He
that's why maybe he was the
he's
passing
also turned
touchdowns
the
were up
ball over a little
there.
bit more this year. He hasn't been as comfortable with the ball. Like he's been turning it all ball over a little bit more, which is I think part of it. But yeah, he's in this tier for sure.
Yeah, he has
But
better odds than Allen right now, which or he
yeah,
should at least. So
should. Yeah.
rightfully so. As much as that hurts to say.
No, for my surprise player of the week, I'm going with a surprisingly good player, Darius Slayton.
Yup.
Eight
yeah.
catches on 11 targets for 122 yards and a touchdown? Are we serious right now? What the hell? That was crazy. I was figuring Wandale Robinson would come in and be amazing. And he was pretty good. He had a pretty good week, to be honest. Wandale was pretty solid. But against that Seattle secondary, that Seattle defense, Darius Slayton was able to get open. I would have hated to see what Malik Neighbors would have done against that defense, man. He would have had 20 catches for 500 yards and three touchdowns. Like, I don't know how Darius Slayton was getting that open for eight catches for 122 yards, all while Wandale was also having a pretty good week. I mean, he had six catches. He only had 36 yards. He had a touchdown. But, like, what? I don't know what the hell was going on with Darius Slayton. What got into that, man?
Especially with those Seahawks corners.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, defensive player of the week, Nick. Who stood out to you on that side of the ball?
He's my man. I'm gonna call him Stinky Ginky, Andrew Van Ginkel, with that that pick six in London. I mean, if you take the pick six away, they lose the game, Minnesota. And I think it was besides the pick six, he didn't do anything. He had one what do you call it? Tackle assisted tackle, but it's the impact the pick six had later on in the game. I mean, besides a CJ Ham touchdown for Minnesota, they just were held to field goals. So Van Ginkel, the interception was huge. He also lurked Aaron Rodgers. Like it was kind of gross with the fake blitz comes out and then snags with one hand, gets it in the other. I mean, there wasn't, I mean, maybe you guys will point out guys I missed. There wasn't a lot of defensive guys that stood out to me. Trayvon Walker was another one, maybe with the three sacks. But it's just the pick six, how crucial it was, and what the impact it had on the end of the game. So I give it a stinky game.
I believe he has more touchdowns on the year than like Tyreek Hill, right? So I think that he has that's his second touchdown of the week of the year. So um,
I I'm going with a guy who I want to talk about. I've been meaning to talk about him. He's been my guy, and I've been meaning to bring him up in this sort of conversation all year because he's been so good. And this week you finally had like the stat sheet numbers to back it up. Patrick Surtain the second.
Yeah.
This guy is the best corner in the league, and I don't want to hear otherwise. Two interceptions, a 100-yard pick six. We had this conversation. We did our top 10 players at each position. We went cornerback. You guys were on the Sauce Gardner train. I was on the Pat Surtain train. Pat Surtain is unreal. He has run an absolute gauntlet of number one receivers to open this year up. Seattle and DK Metcalf, Pittsburgh and George Pickens, who isn't a great number one, but still. Tampa and Mike Evans, the Jets and Garrett Wilson, and Joey. It wasn't much against the Raiders, but he has played some elite receivers, and he has allowed nothing all year. I think the stat was on it was something like over 80 routes as him covering man on man, the number one receiver on the other team. Only seven catches for 75 yards on those 80 routes. This guy is a machine. He's only allowed 10 completions all season and for only 102 yards. No touchdowns allowed. He's now got those picks. He is amazing. I love Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, I was talking about that Denver defense. He's been a big reason why. Yeah, he was definitely in the conversation. I'm just gonna go TJ Watt because I don't even know if we've talked about him in this conversation yet, and he should have been brought up. Uh, 8 tackles this week, 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, and 3 QB hits. Just continually dominating whatever tackle he's up against, especially when it's Terrence Steele or whoever tackle he's going up against. So, or McGarry, like he absolutely killed Atlanta earlier in the year. So that's where we'll be for defensive player of the week, rookie of the week. Nick, who stood out to you? I hope it's not Keon Coleman.
No, but it is another wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, this guy's making Trevor Lawrence look decent right now. Like I'm a T-Law guy, and I mean, despite him having 371 passing yards against the Colts, he hasn't been great this year. However, Brian Thomas Jr. is starting to produce like an elite wide receiver, and we're only 5 weeks in. Season high 122 receiving yards and an 85-yard touchdown to go along with it. I mean, on that play alone. It gave us one, a great meme with the Colt CB diving at him, which was jokes. And then on top of it, they clocked him running at 22 miles per hour, which is the fastest of any person this season. I mean, in a draft class that was highlighted by Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr. right now is the second best wide receiver in that class from statistical standpoint. He's outplayed Marv, which
Yeah.
I don't think many people would have expected coming into the season.
Yeah. I mean, someone had to fill in for Will Levis because he was on bye week, so someone had to have a stupid photo. And it was that Colts cornerback. We'll be back on the Will Levis stupid photo trend next week. I'm going Tyrone Tracy against the Seahawks. 18 carries for 129 yards, averaging 7 yards a carry in his first start this year as a rookie. He was the preseason guy, like that was the preseason backup that everyone was hyping up. Finally got a full workload with Devin Singletary out this week, and he was really impressive. I'm curious to see if they'll start to split the carries maybe between Singletary and Tracy because Tracy looked very, very good, and I'd like to see if he can keep that up, especially against a rough defense in Cincinnati because he was really, really impressive.
Yeah, I brought up Tracy earlier. I'll go with Tracy as well, as he honestly like we were sitting there, Glover, like what Eric Gray was getting all these catches out of the backfield and looking solid, and then
And he
Tracy
fumbled.
basically from that on, basically from the first quarter on, or I guess second quarter on, um, was the guy there and ran it really hard and really well. All right, well that about does it. Any other thoughts for you guys? Like Glover, anything else stand out? Anything you want to bring up? Anything what else you want to rant about today?
No, Aaron Rodgers was the main one. I mean, Jets are gonna jet, and I think it's only gonna be downhill from here for that franchise. So that'll be as someone who put a decent chunk of stock in my predictions in the Jets having a good year, I'm regretting that choice because they are kind of a mess. The only benefit they had was Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers were more on the same page this week, but it might also have just been the fact that Garrett Wilson had 21 targets that they weren't actually on the same page. He just kept getting the ball thrown to him. So
Well, Nick, Buffalo's playing them next Monday. You got to feel like that's a big bounce back for Buffalo there.
I'll be honest, if the Bills lose this game, there might be another head coach out of New York. And
panic
so,
button.
if they lose, I think Sean McDermott has to be gone, and I think you have to look upstairs and look at Bean too. Because I don't think we have the time to deep dive into it, but Brandon Bean, the Bills have been terrible at drafting, and you can now see why. You can see Josh Allen gives this team a huge pass on their draft grade. Take out Josh Allen, this team can't draft.
I'd
Just especially
also
in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I'd recommend stop trading your picks to the Chiefs. As just as
Yeah.
the Jets tonight they're out there. If you guys could stop doing that, it'd be really good. Because giving them Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy, I'd prefer to not. Let's just not be doing
Uh,
that. Can we avoid that,
I
please?
think we also might have been a reason they got McDuffie too. But
Oh, thanks.
I got to
That'd
look
make
at
me
that
feel
too.
so
I
much better.
think we were also a reason for, but we got Trey White. We got Trey White.
You guys just gotta like, why are you trading with the Chiefs, man?
Dude, I
Stop
don't know,
it.
man. I don't know. Like trade with anybody but the Chiefs. Everybody that
Yeah,
we trade for them
exactly.
turns out to be stars, and we get like Trey White was good until he got hurt
Yeah.
every year.
Patrick Mahomes is pretty good too,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all right.
He's okay.
Well, all eyes will be on that one. One, because it's prime time, and there's, I mean, new head coach. I guess, well, interim head coach there for the Jets, and then the Bills. 2 game losing streak. See if they can get back on track. I like the Thursday night game coming up.
Yeah.
San Francisco and Seattle. That should be. I mean, how about these Niners? We really haven't talked about the Niners. Kind of a weird year for them. A lot of injuries, but I don't know. It
They were
doesn't
healthy
really.
yesterday or on Sunday. They were
I
healthy.
mean,
Hmm.
McCaffrey hasn't played yet, so they're not fully healthy, but Mason's filled in pretty admirably.
Exactly. If you can't get your offense rolling because your running back's not playing like an offensive player of the year, he's only playing like a Pro Bowler. Yeah, I don't know about that because Ayuk had a really good week. You got Kittle who had a good week. You still have Debo. The O-line's still amazing. Purdy made a bad play at the end of that game. But like you have like the downgrade is obviously big from McCaffrey to Mason. But if you can't run your offense because your running back's not playing like the best in the league,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Commanders Ravens is something is a
yeah.
game maybe to keep an eye on. The Dan Skipper game, Lions Cowboys is another one that could be good next week. Honestly, not as many good games this week as coming up as I think there was going to be last week. Maybe Packers Cardinals, but
Maybe.
we'll see. All right, well, that does it for the Backfield Buzz podcast. Subscribe if you like us, if you like it, if you like the video, like it too. If you disagree with anything we said or agree, put it in the comments. We love to love to just get more interaction from everybody. But that'll do it, fellas. Cody Wiles, Logan Glover, and Nick Frias here with us. We'll see if Nick is back. We'll see. We got to talk to Frosty. He's kind of MIA right now. But uh, anyways, thanks for watching, and as always, keep it buzzing.